listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Welcome to Second Wind. You know, Second Wind is the podcast that's here today to encourage you to play full out, to inspire you to dream big, much bigger, and to inform you about how to get there. Now, my guests go through their process of sharing so that you'll find that courage, the inspiration, and they're going to provide you with some knowledge to help you move through your second wind, just as they move through theirs multiple times. So I welcome you to the show today. And I'm excited about sharing this guest. I think she's going to be fascinating she was for me, so I assume she's going to be for you as well as she shares with us. Now, her name is Ambika Devi. How did I do? Oh, I've been.
You got the first name great. It's Ambika Devi.
You know, my listeners just laugh. They have to laugh because if I can mess it up, I will. Is that not correct? Is that not true, listeners?
It's okay. It's not a very common name in the West, and so it's understandable that it's a little challenging.
Yes, but it's a beautiful name, really.
Well, thank you. It's the name of Mother Nature.
Oh, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay.
Or it's one of the names of the great Mother Goddess, and she's the one who gave birth to the qualities of nature.
I see. Very good. Well, you understand how she comes across that with that. She carries that name today as I go through just a short introduction of the many things that she has done. So Ambika is she's on a mission for peace to help people realize their true nature, so that they can step out of churning river of thoughts and activity of the mind. Stop wearing insane schedules like badges of honor and begin their days reinforced with the calmness a meditation practice would bring. Oh, I'm so glad we're talking about this today. Meditating since the age of 6. That just grabs me. With 44 years of teaching experience, 13,000 plus hours of study, and having taught over 19,000 people the art of meditation. Wow. She gives you 5 clear steps that lead you directly into a deep state of meditation. She is a scholar of yoga with an expert knowledge of the philosophy and teaching of the Far Eastern mystery schools. So welcome to the show today.
Why, thank you, Joyce.
I am a little confused as to how a 4-year-old could a 6-year-old could sit down when I am in my 70s and I can't sit sometimes. So how did that happen for you?
Great question.
What?
Yes, I know. And it wasn't just me, it was my entire class of first graders. And we were at a Quaker school where traditionally students meet on Wednesday mornings to sit quietly for an hour. So the Quakers aren't calling it meditation, but that's exactly what they're teaching. They're teaching stillness, quiet, contemplation. And I really, really am so grateful for having had that education, because I was taught so many things in addition to sitting quietly for an hour.
Right.
That when I later studied at an ashram and lived there, I realized, wow, a lot of the things that we learned were part of in that early education was a great deal of what's being taught to yogis, which are, serving the community, having a job local to the community. So in school, I had jobs that ranged from raking leaves to working in the kitchen, cleaning off dishes after lunch.
Right. Right.
And this really gives you a great honoring of everything that goes into the day of a student, aside from having to sit in classrooms and learn. And we were also encouraged to go outside during the day. We had a break in the morning where we would do a job, and we had breaks where after that job where we could mingle with each other, have a cup of tea or coffee. Well, not as a 6-year-old, but you understand what I'm saying. And it also gave the faculty a time to kind of get away and connect with each other. And this was daily. So, these different chores.
Were you living at the school, or was this a school you would go to attend and come home?
It was a day school in the beginning.
And where was it?
It was in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. And later I did go to junior high, which was actually an all school. But I was part of the junior high. And then later I did go to a high school as a boarding student. So once I was a teenager, I was sitting for 2 hours on Sundays and 1 hour on Wednesdays. And it just created a contemplative me. I enjoyed taking my journal out on the lawn, sitting, writing, drawing, or just being in nature, lying on the ground in the grass or leaning against an old tree. So it just created the habit early on. And when we teach things to little kids, it becomes habitual.
Yeah, I could see, just experiencing what it would be like with your peers. That's very important, because when you've got a class of 6-year-olds all doing the same thing, then they can take it on as, oh, this is not strange. This is just a practice that we do.
That's exactly it. And it was with the 1st through 6th graders. So we had the influence of the older kids, feeling like this was a regular thing. And we sang on Tuesday mornings. We all sang. It is a beautiful education. So those of you who are involved in homeschooling, consider this as part of your weekly routine. And those of you who are adults, like you, Joyce, you just start with a few minutes. On my podcast, Meditate with Ambika, I've got a less than 5-minute practice. So you can get started with some guidance from me with a little bit of breathing and just get into the feeling of what does that state of being feel like? What is what are the sensations? Because a great trend right now, Joyce, is to be entertained, to go to YouTube or a podcast and have something to listen to and or watch. And this is not meditating. This is a trigger to send you into the state of meditation. The state of meditation is silent and a withdrawal of the senses. The state of meditation is not mind entertainment. But we human beings need a lot of stimulus, and we need to understand how to get in touch with our senses. And then meditation is learning how to withdraw from those senses. But how can you do that if you don't know what they're doing? We have to understand what our senses are doing and triggering and asking of us, so that we understand what it feels like when we're disconnected from them.
Okay, tell the name of your podcast again.
My podcast is Meditate with Ambika.
Okay.
So it's my name after, meditate with, and then Ambika.
Okay. Now, just sort of critique me on this. I have used this in common. I like to do vision board workshops. I love to do those.
I love vision boards too.
So, and I'm doing one this weekend. So I always kind of bring them down to some grounding before we go into the actual day. And I do that. I used to do it with some soothing music. with
Mhm.
quietness. Then I have also used just listening to the sounds in the room.
Mhm.
Would you, is there another suggestion you might lay on me?
Sure.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing already, Joyce. These are great because when we're focusing and concentrating on anything, like holding a pair of scissors or getting ready to hold a pair of scissors,
Right.
we're training the mind to focus and concentrate. Meditation, that's why I think a lot of people get confused about stimulus, because if we give the mind something to entertain it or focus on, a dot on the wall, a candle flame, an
Yes.
image, a
Right.
word, a
Uh-huh.
mantra,
Uh-huh.
our breathing, then we're creating focus and concentration, and then that helps us to withdraw. So breathing is great. Grounding and centering is where I begin. I always begin with centering and grounding, and
Mhm.
there are different techniques that I use for that.
Mhm.
Uh, Bouncing my heels on the ground. This could be seated or standing, or even jumping up and down if that's available to you and that's okay
Mhm.
with your body.
Mhm.
And that gets your heart pumping a little bit. That makes it easier to focus on your breath.
Oh.
And then closing your eyes and focusing on the sensation of your breathing.
Mhm.
Wherever your mind and focus, your awareness are drawn is fine.
Right.
And then take it to the front inside edges of the nostrils. If
Ah,
you can get in
yeah.
touch with the air there, then it's easier to focus. And then you can let the mind go to wherever it chooses. If it feels drawn upward in between the eyebrows, that's great. If it feels drawn into the heart, that's great. Neither is more correct,
Mhm.
but let it go to one of those places. And then ask your group to create an intention. At that
Mm.
point is where we can create an intention of what we're going to do. So
Nice.
with your vision
Yes.
boards, whatever your theme is of
Yes.
your vision board, that's the time to ask everyone, now focus on your intention of what we're about to do. And you could put a little bit of suggestion about the actions of cutting,
Mhm.
arranging, pasting,
Mhm. Mhm.
things like that. That's what I would do.
Yeah,
So
sounds like
hopefully
it.
that's inspiring and
It
helps to create
is.
some ideas.
Yeah. Well, I like, learning about meditation. I'm going to use some of that. I'm going to use that tomorrow.
Yeah, please do. I mean,
Tomorrow.
go and listen to uh the
Yeah.
perfect day, or one of my nighttime guided meditations for before sleep. I have one that's super popular with writers that I work
Uh-huh.
with. You know about the writing group. I
Yes.
had shared
Yes.
that when
Yes.
we were talking before we decided to indeed have me as a guest today. And I do guided meditations for creativity and for writers also that help you get deeper sleep. So I like to put some multitask ideas into my guided creative visualization
Oh, yeah.
so that people can sleep deeper, especially if it's a nighttime one, or feel more energized if it's a daytime meditation.
Right. I There is really a growing issue, I think, with sleeping.
Oh, I
I
think it's
hear
been
more.
there, Joyce.
It's been
It's been
there.
there. Oh, it's been there. Yes. But I understand what you mean. We're seeing more and more
It's more
products and
conversation.
mm,
I don't know. Maybe it's my age. I don't know. But I do see more people talking about I can't sleep. I just had a horrible night. Uh, don't you?
wow.
I mean, do you see that? No, they
That's
probably don't
well, yes,
complain
and
to
that's
you.
what
They
inspired me to
probably
create a course for it. So I have a course that I created with videos and guided meditation, and
uh-huh.
of course a little bit of written information, but it's little videos. Here's something really interesting. When I set out to make this course, I went and interviewed people who feel challenged about sleep, and I said, okay, how many minutes a day can you give me? Can you devote to a video?
Mhm.
Hoping that they would say 10.
Yes.
They said
No.
2,
Oh
2 minutes,
no.
2 minutes. I thought, wow, okay, not only are you not sleeping great, but you're having a really hard time devoting
Attention.
some time to yourself for some self-care. Okay, I went a little over 5 minutes on a few of them. I negotiated with them and I said, okay, can you give me 5? And they
Uh-huh.
said, okay, yeah, maybe. So I created End Sleep Envy. That's the name of my course. And you can find that at my coaching site, which is ambikascoaching.com. And with End Sleep Envy, I give different guided meditation styles each night for you to
Oh,
use. And my videos address different things in environment and personal habits, because I have learned working with people that have challenges sleeping that everybody has different factors. And so that's why I think we're seeing so many different things being created,
right.
because there's no blanket solution to this.
Yeah. Is that because we're all so scattered or diverse? I mean,
Well,
we're certainly stimulated more than we used to be when we went to
oh,
bed, I
that's for
think.
sure. There's a lot of
Yeah.
different factors involved. And then there's everybody's physiology and nature involved. So, yes, there's a lot of different directions we can go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So they can go to your website. This is kind of a bonus you're sharing with them today.
Yes,
They can go to your website. You want to give them directions for taking
sure.
advantage of this wonderful offer?
Yes, absolutely. Go to ambikascoaching.com, AMBIKAS coaching, COACHING.com. And there you can find End Sleep Envy and use a code, all lowercase, Ambika helps me sleep. And you can get 50% off on this course.
Yes, I like that. I like that. Um, well, okay. Um, you mentioned earlier the importance of senses, being aware of our senses.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm sure you remember back to learning about seeing, hearing, smelling,
Yeah,
tasting, and
right.
touch.
Yeah,
Those are what we call gross senses because it's part of the gross body.
yeah.
I always wondered why we use the word gross for disgusting as well as physical. I don't know that I love that. But
Um,
your gross body senses, and each one of those senses potentially has a heightened level.
mhm.
So if you've been a parent, you know about those heightened senses because you can sense things your kids are doing, thinking, saying at
Yes,
any given moment.
right.
They kick in, they get heightened. And then we have psychic sensing, which are words that start with the French prefix clair. Please do not use the idea of the clear senses as the clairs. This is a pet peeve of mine. This is bad slang, very bad
Oh,
slang.
okay.
Use the idea of psychic sensing. That's
Oh,
exactly what we're talking about.
okay.
So you can say clairvoyance. That's the psychic sensing of sight. Do you
Ah,
understand? So let's use proper language and terminology, everybody.
yeah.
And each of your gross body senses has the potential of psychic sense. And I do believe we all have these. And as a meditator, you get more sensitive. You become more sensitive
Yeah.
to these different gross body senses. And you can actually heighten them.
Mhm.
You can train yourself to experience them. I actually just wrote an article about this on Medium, about that
Oh,
fine line
yeah.
between psychic sensing or intuition, between intuition and ego, because
Yeah.
a big problem is that, especially with intuition and giving intuitive guidance to others or yourself, we
Mhm.
have to understand, is that really intuition or is that the ego mind talking to me?
Oh, oh.
A great many people think they're being intuitive, but they're actually using ego ideas, ego stimulated communication. So to really get in touch with intuition, we've got to practice meditation.
Yeah.
Uh, I believe that intuition is reached by climbing the ladder of meditation. So we've got to be a
Ah,
meditator to be highly intuitive or
yeah.
skilled at it. This is my belief, everybody. You can argue me if you want.
It makes sense. It makes sense the more you know each other. I did yourself. I mean, just you go inward. I think it makes sense to me.
Mhm.
But I am so excited you're writing on Medium
Oh,
because
yes.
I just became familiar with that site. And so I just put your name in to find you. Is
Mhm.
that how I find you?
Absolutely.
I'm still kind of searching it. I have identified and connected with one lady that is writing right down my alley for some things, but
Mm.
they have a lot of people that write for that
Oh,
site.
it's a really great place to
Yep.
blog.
Yes. So
Mhm.
that is medium.com,
Mhm.
correct?
And
Yeah.
then just look for Ambika Devi.
Yes, for
Mhm.
sure. I'm not on there yet, folks, so you can't look for me, but you can look for Ombi.
And let me spell out my whole name for you, because you can also
Yes.
find all my links on my link tree. So
Oh,
linktree
yes.
slash my name, which is Ambika Devi, AMBIKA DEVI. Devi means goddess.
Oh,
So it's a goddess's name that I was given.
I
Yeah, yeah,
see.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have explored meditation, but you've also spent for years from a teenager, you were exploring astrology
I
and the
was.
two together. And I happen to love astrology work, and although I'm not schooled in it, such as you are, but I do love the astrology work. And
Mm.
so, anyway, tell us how those two you put those together.
Well, we probably all know the term body, mind, spirit, correct? You've
Yes,
heard that.
yes,
You've heard that.
yeah.
Well, I think that most people don't realize that's a direct translation of Sanskrit.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And the thing is, these three things represent, for body is Ayurveda. Have you heard of
Mhm.
Ayurveda?
I
I
have.
think that's become more and more popular for diet and herbology. And
Mhm,
Ayurveda is for the physical world. So that's for body.
mhm,
Yoga, you've heard of yoga.
mhm.
Yoga is for the mind, because the focal point of yoga is meditation. Sure, there's
Oh,
exercises involved, but that's an exercise program in the West that was named yoga. Yoga is a huge philosophy of lifestyle, and it does have the physical exercises in it, but its primary focal point is meditation. And then there's
really?
Jyotisha. And Jyotisha is the science of light. That's astrology. So the idea of body, mind, spirit are these three daughters of the Vedas,
Yeah.
which are ancient techniques for the science of life. So
Uh-huh.
body, Ayurveda; mind, yoga; spirit, Jyotisha. They were
Uh-huh.
never separated. It's just the way they've leaked into the West was one at a time.
Yeah.
In order, you've heard of using a mantra.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
in yoga and for meditation, for helping to focus the mind, helping to tame the mind, and using your own voice and your own primordial sound is something I've been researching for years and teaching my students and clients as a technique for quieting the mind. And there are a lot of very well-known mantras
Mhm.
out there. You
Mhm.
can surf YouTube for days and not come to the end of it.
Mhm.
However, in your own personal astrological chart is information about a sound that would be really great for you. So we use
Oh.
astrology to find the magical mantra for you.
Oh,
And
that
then we
sounds
also use
awesome.
astrology to relate to the days of the week and the planetary influences of the week.
Right.
And so we need to understand astrology and astronomy in order to do this.
Right.
Or we're just haphazardly throwing darts in the dark. We're
Yeah.
uh,
Well, it is interesting. I've I'm fairly new to a lot of this. And so not meditation, because I've been on this road for 20 years, but certainly I started out with Jack Canfield and we did meditation in his work, his groups. And but the yoga, I experienced some of those, but it was always in the exercise classes here. And
Sure.
I'm stiff as a board, I'm sorry. My body's that way because I don't move enough. And it was always such a challenge for me to even reach some of those positions. So, of course, I lost interest because it was a challenge. But it was interesting that you said that was not always connected to exercise.
Yoga exercises, the asana, are there to loosen you up so you can sit, so you can find a comfortable seated position.
Yes.
So that you can meditate. Pranayama, the breathing, is very, very important as well. And learning to do proper breathing practices is a great part of it. Now, when I don't know where you took yoga or what kind of class you were in, but if it was all movement and posture based, without any breathing, without any quiet meditation, then it was an exercise class using ideas from yoga called branded yoga.
Yeah. Oh.
Did I used to teach class like that? Well, not completely. I did teach physical posture or asana class, but I would not teach anywhere where they would not allow me to do proper breathing, proper toning, proper meditating. And when it got to the point where, and I was told at 2 places, just do the, just get to it, just get to the exercises. I said, well, you know what, we're done. I'm not doing this. This is improper. You have no business calling this yoga. You should call it yoga-like exercise class.
Oh, I bet that went over really well.
Yes.
Yes.
Big, let's say big fitness chain didn't really love me after that, but and I really don't like to teach multiple people at once. I can't keep my eyes on 15 people or 35 people at once. I don't even really like teaching 2 at a time because everybody has different needs. And what yoga, I've been quoted on this for years. Yoga to me should be like a cat awakening from a nap. If you've ever had a pet, and I've seen horses do this too. I grew up on a horse farm. I've seen dogs do this. But how does an animal awaken from a nap? Do they get into specific poses? No. Do they move in a very fluid, very, very taffy-like way?
Yeah.
And they feel what's going on and they stretch and do all their movements just by what's guiding them on the inside. So I recommend you close your eyes, lie down on the floor, and just start to move. And if you need something to inspire you, think of different animals, think of babies, think of how would a bear do this? How would a cat do this? How would a turtle do this?
I have no idea.
Why not? And if it hurts, no, you're not doing it right. If it's stressing you out, no, you're not doing it right. So if you're playing Simon Says and you're competing, because look, that's what happens. You get into a room with other people doing stuff. You're looking, you're comparing yourself, the mind's doing it. No, then it's lost its whole meditative experience. Please forgive me, everybody. I'm not a fan.
That's all right. I was running through my mind. You'll have to excuse me, but I kind of go with this. Do you ever have to be adjusted with yoga if you're participating in yoga?
You mean like, what do you mean adjusted?
I go to a chiropractor and get adjusted.
Because you can do adjustments of a person in a pose.
Yes.
I'll tell you, when I started seeing chiropractor when I was a kid. I started going to yoga class with my mom when I was about 9. I loved Shavasana, the rest pose, the best. which is the meditation pose. And then I realized, wow, it's the meditation I'm into. And when I stopped doing bilateral hyper stretches, like the warrior poses, I didn't need to be
Yes.
adjusted by a chiropractor anymore.
Right.
So that just
Yeah.
tells you, you know, those are throwing your hips out. You're probably not doing them in a safe way.
Right.
Now, because of the way I do practice sun salutations, but I
Okay.
do them in the style of Shivananda Ashram, which is one of the places I studied where I received my name.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really like the way they handle the sequence of the sun salutations. And I can easily roll and twist on the floor, even if I wake up. Look, we all wake up with a crick in the neck once in a while, or the hip once in a while, once in a while. But if you can't move, stretch, relax, breathe your way out of it, then you're probably doing something wrong.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so you don't want to push. If you do go to class because you like that group energy and you like that sense of being in a room with other people, you know, extroverts like that stuff, you know, that's fine. Just be sure you're not competing, and try to close your eyes and feel yourself more than using visual stimuli to encourage you to do movement or motion. If you're an introvert, hey, just put on some nice music. This week, I kind of got into some West African music that's played on an instrument that almost sounds like a mandolin or a harp. It's really beautiful and relaxing. And sometimes I like some music if I'm feeling sluggish and I really want to get on the floor and do some sun salutations. I might put on Gaelic Storm and listen to some raucous Celtic type music, you know. So it's just, or sometimes I'll just want quiet, you know, and just want to feel and kind of, I think of myself as like oozing on the floor.
Yeah. So you must do daily movement like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's
Of
part of your
course.
daily routine.
I have the
Just like
muscles to prove it.
Do you really? Oh my God.
And here you can see
Uh-huh.
I stand on my head every day.
you
There are 4 postures that we do the warm-up postures for. And they are known as the king, the queen, the prince, and the princess. I like that so much because if we think of tarot cards, those are the 4 court cards in tarot, or you know, the princess could be called page. But they are headstand, shoulder stand, standing forward bend, and seated forward bend. So that's why we do all the warm-ups, to do those 4 postures. Anything else is extra, you know, if you want to do a bridge or something like that.
Tell me about the shoulder stand. How
Shoulder
does that
stand?
work? Yeah. You're actually resting on the shoulder.
You're
No,
rolling
what do you
back
do
and
with your head?
yes. Yeah,
Yes.
face up, rolling back, standing on the shoulders. When you were a little kid in school and gym, they might have called it candlestick.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Shoulder stand, yes, so important for digestion. And one of the most potent things that inversions, the headstand and shoulder stand, are classical inversions. What they do is they, particularly the shoulder stand, will create a sensation in the heart space, which actually helps the heart to pump hard, and it's very cleansing for the lungs and the heart. And if you practice plow, which is letting the legs go back behind the head when you're in that posture,
yes,
that's really very stimulating for digestion and helps to tone the small and large intestine, as well as all the viscera of the internal organs.
So what if you're new to, because you're introducing a lot of words and positions that perhaps some people have not experienced. So how would you suggest to somebody they begin Or
with
do
a
we?
skilled teacher one-on-one like
Okay.
myself.
Okay. And you can
Yes.
do this over the
Oh, internet, no
awesome.
problem.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Zoom lesson. Let's learn to do it properly. And then
Yes.
there's no injury. We don't want any injuries.
Yeah. Right. Oh, well, that's cool to know.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
it's so important with any physical exercise. If it hurts, stop.
Yes. Yes.
Stop the mentality of no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Foolishness.
Now, you are a prolific writer. You've written 6 books.
I have.
Okay. Did I get that right?
Although one of them is in Spanish, so it's English and Spanish, it's the same book. But yes, I do have 6 physical books out there, and I'm working on the 7th right now.
So they primarily, I know when you were talking to them about them to me, they were very different in their subject matter. So they're expansive over your history of learning. So you might just give us a brief description of your books. Can you do that?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. My first book, Lilith, is a novel. It's got a lot of autobiographical storytelling in it. So if you want to learn more about me, however, I did write it as a fiction book, so there are fictionalized things going on in it. And
how will we know the difference?
You have to call me. You have to call or write me and say, did this happen?
I can just imagine, because you sound like you've traveled all over the earth to get all of this information. You've mentioned ashram, you've mentioned it, and I'm like going, this lady has traveled a bunch. So we'll get to that, but tell us about your books.
Okay, so Lilith, I wrote a master's thesis for my master's in yoga. Who's going to read that?
Well,
but the premise of that is about divine masculine, divine feminine energy, that divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy is in everything. So I took that and I based my storytelling in the book on 3 myths: the myth of the divine feminine, and I used the Sumerian Lilith myth for that. The wounded divine masculine, I used the Fisher King myth for that. And creation, I used the Inca myth for that. And I wove stories together inspired by one of my favorite authors and one of my favorite books. I love the idea of different storylines weaving and converging. My favorite.
So who is your favorite author?
Tom Robbins.
Okay.
Tom Robbins and the book Jitterbug Perfume inspired Lilith. So it's a fiction story. It won 2nd place in an international fiction contest in the category of spiritual fiction. So, well, it's a book contest, an annual book contest. I came in 2nd place, and
congratulations.
L. Ron Hubbard beat me. So
darn.
Yeah, I think if you're going to lose to someone, may as well be somebody who's got that much cred. Right. And it was my first book, so out of the gate, winning a prize. Wow. That's pretty awesome. Then my second book is Unfolding Happiness. It's a co-authorship with a former surgeon, former chief of surgery turned Ayurvedic doctor, who asked me to help him write an introductory book for Ayurveda. And I said, fine, but I want to write introduction to meditation in it too, and some cosmology, because I honor the fact that body, mind, spirit is indeed yoga, Ayurveda, and Jyotisha and astrology. So there's a little cosmology in there. And if you're curious about Ayurveda, it's a great first book. And then my third book is poetry. I have a dear friend who's a very well-known poet who wrote a lot of poetry about Vietnam. He's a Nam vet, and he's also written some beautiful poetry about love, and he adores water and the river near where we live. And I said, you know what, Dominic, I want to write us a really nice poetry book.
Uh-huh.
I want to put together a really nice poetry book where our poetry is a conversation of love back and forth
Mm.
and of
Mhm.
relationships. And so
Mhm.
that's called the second book, I don't know if I mentioned, the title is called Unfolding Happiness. The third book is called The Wizard and the Wrench.
Uh-huh.
The fourth book is a short ebook and all of those first four books are available in audiobook form too, also,
Oh, good.
if you'd like to hear me
Good.
read them to
Yes,
you.
yes. Yes.
And
But you said the place to start, one that might be a good place
well,
to
it
start.
just depends on what you want, and
Yeah.
if you want to wade into my novel, or I think there's some storytelling, personal stories of
Yeah.
VJ's and mine in Unfolding Happiness. And well, the Goddess book is honoring, identifying and honoring the goddess. It's an ebook, and
Mhm.
it's got a lot of color imagery in it, so I may put together a little picture book, like a
Mhm.
small scale coffee table book, so that we can enjoy the color
Yeah.
images, and it could be a collectible. And the book I'm working on right now is about love, and it's just me writing this book, and it's got short story, a little bit of history about Cupid and Cupid in
Mm.
other cultures.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
so it's poetry, flash fiction, which I get a
Mhm.
kick out of writing, and
Yes.
and also a short story, which is a conversation between myself and Cupid about love. So that weaves
Yes.
through, and there'll be artwork also, and photography, because I'm an avid photographer, and I still do a lot of creative artwork. I do most of my book covers, although I have an artist that I work with, and she did the art layout and the cover for the Goddess book.
Yeah. I want to go back just a moment and talk about the one you did with the man that had gone to Vietnam, the poetry book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that I was interested. That was such a tumultuous time in the United States, and I
Mm.
certainly in
Well,
Vietnam.
our poetry book doesn't have, it has one poem that it has a couple from his time in Vietnam, but they're
Uh-huh.
mostly about relationships, his poems in
Uh-huh.
the book.
Uh-huh.
And we both have a poem about our grandmothers.
Oh,
And
nice.
the book is goes back and forth. So he said the only way he would do a book with me is if his poem was the first one. I said, no problem. You can have the first poem in the book. And it goes back and forth, his poem, my poem, back and forth, back and forth.
Nice.
So what I did was, I have a whole lot less
Uh,
written in poetry form than he does.
uh-huh.
Thousands. He writes thousands of poems. I have a
Really?
stack of books of his. Yes, he's a poet laureate, and as I said, very well known for his poetry about Vietnam. His name is Dominic Albanese,
Mhm.
and uh, I had seen a book he wrote of love poetry, and I said I'd love to use this one in ours. And he gave me a box of
Ah,
thousands of printed out poems, and I went on a road trip and took his poems on the road trip and read them, and picked out 30 for the book.
yeah,
So it's 30 of his, 30 of mine.
yeah. Oh, it sounds like it'd be fascinating,
It's a
interesting to
fun book.
read.
And then we do have artwork of a friend of his who is no longer living. He was actually, he died after Vietnam because of Agent Orange.
Oh.
And it was very sad. He was a very well-known graphic artist
Oh.
from that time. And
Mm,
we do have a couple of his drawings in the book also.
right. Yeah. Um, now, can people find your books on your website?
On my coaching
Yeah.
site, there's a page of all the books,
Okay.
and also on Amazon. If you look up my name as an author, just search Ambika Devi author, and you'll find my author page there with all my books.
Very good. Now we are getting close to our time together. And so I wanted to give people from you, I wanted you to share how people can actually find you. You have so many different, of course, you cover all of the social media sites.
Mhm.
Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Mhm.
You're on YouTube.
Mhm.
And what primarily do you put on your YouTube?
Ooh, on YouTube, when I'm speaking,
Mm-hmm.
I I will
Tape.
often put a YouTube video,
Mm-hmm.
depending on whether I captured it or if somebody else did. I have a
Yeah.
list of
Yeah.
presentations. I have a list of interviews when they're video interviews,
Awesome.
and I have micro lessons because I tested it out, and I think that the 59-second Instagram video is about the length of concentration I can hope for from people. I do a few lives there, a few IGTVs.
Yeah.
My keynotes are up on my YouTube. So
Yeah.
just different things.
Yeah.
There's
So
learning opportunities, interviews, etc.
where do you do, where primarily do you do your speaking?
Right now, virtually.
Oh, yes. Yes. That's the way of the
Yes,
world.
I'm not booking any in-person gigs right now.
I
Everything's
know.
virtual. So if you'd like me to speak, I'd be more than happy to speak. I teach workshops and teach virtually. So
Yeah.
everything's online.
Yeah. Well, we haven't even touched so many things that you are involved with that I hope in the future you'll come back and see us again
I'd
and share
love to,
more
Joyce.
of your
Yes, we can get into something specifically or even try a hands-on
yeah.
type activity with your listeners. And really, I mean, because you can tell everybody Joyce is overwhelmed by all my links. That's why I have a
Yes,
that's why I have a link tree. So if you're not familiar with Linktree, it's a really great place for people like me to put all their links. And so just look up Linktree, linktr.ee/ my
Okay.
name, Ambika Devi, AMBIKADEVI.
Uh-huh. Yes. I I am definitely going to check that out with all those links. So anyway, this has been it's been enlightening to me. I have to share that because there, we visited before the call, as always I do with my guests. But there you're a deep well, my dear. You are.
So I've been told, Miss Joyce. Yes. Well,
I think that's wonderful.
I'm a
That's a
sexagenarian.
compliment.
I
That's
think
a
I think it's
compliment.
so cool that I can say sexagenarian, and
Can you spell it?
sexagenarian. That means you're in your 60s.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Latin word for six is sex. So I've had a lot of time to practice, and I'm a bit of an introvert, so I love doing things on my own, just quietly getting into projects. And writing is one of my great loves.
Really?
I love writing, and
Now, what age did you discover writing?
I think that it was in third grade when I realized that I could read a book without pictures.
Yes. Yes.
And that when I was writing compositions, that's what our teachers called them back then, when I would have to write an assignment and I would draw and write poems and cartoons in the margins of my notebook paper. And bless the heart of Mrs. Palmer, my third grade teacher. You see, I remember her name because she was such an impact.
Yes.
She was okay with it.
Yeah.
She didn't say, oh, rewrite this, make this a clean page. She saw that was part of my creative flow.
Yes.
And I loved margin cartoons. I got that habit from swiping Mad magazines from my brother, because in Mad magazine there were margin cartoons, and I thought that was the coolest thing, and that must be what a margin on notebook paper is for. So I have to give the creds to Mrs. Palmer.
Are we so lucky when we have that special person that allows us to explore and grow, and they don't keep us to a rigid plan that they have or that they've learned over their life. I just think it's awesome when we're touched by those people.
I have to give creds to my 6th grade teacher too.
Okay.
Mrs. Simpson.
Yeah.
Because Friday afternoon at the end of the day, she would say, if you want to put your head down on your desk, you can, or if you want to, sit on the floor or wherever you feel comfortable, get comfortable. And she would read to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was my beginning of realizing audiobooks rock. I love audiobooks because I loved being read to. And she read things to us that I don't think I would have found on my own. Mm-hmm. I remember she read Pearl Buck to us and just some heavier novels. And it was so great. She was such a great reader out loud. And I got into different types of books that I really have to say it was because of her. And I remember being encouraged by her and picking up things. I read everything Herman Hesse wrote in 6th grade.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I'm going to kind of ask here, were your family readers?
Yes.
Oh,
my mother in our dining room. Mm-hmm. We like families that have a dining room and a kitchen nook, sometimes you eat in the kitchen nook, sometimes you eat in the dining room.
Yes. Sundays.
In the dining room on the sideboard on a huge book holder was a giant dictionary. I still have that dictionary.
Oh, really?
And even if we were eating in the nook area and not in the dining room, there would be moments when we would be in conversation and my mother would go get the dictionary and look up a word and give us a word. And later, as she always belonged to book groups, and sometimes the book groups would meet at our house. And so I understood that people read books and talked about them together. Mm-hmm. And we did that in school. So that felt natural. And then later in her 80s, she was in a book group and it dissolved and the library needed somebody to lead. And I said, Mommy, do it. Do it. You have more than enough to be a book group leader. And she did until she stopped driving, which, was well past a decade. So yes, it's in our blood. Reading and discussing has always been a part of it. And just culture in general. She took me to the ballet and the orchestra and theater. And, I worked in it. My very first summer job was working in a theater.
Oh, awesome.
As an usher. So,
and that was in where?
That was in New Hope, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
At the Bucks County Playhouse, a very, very famous theater.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That is so valuable in creating a foundation for a young person. I worry some about those that live in the outlying areas. We just don't have those exposures. We could in the family, but we don't have.
When left to our own devices on things like TikTok and YouTube, we may not get the cultural input that a mentor could give. Right. And I had great mentors, just really great teachers. And my maternal grandmother turned me on to classical music when I was teeny.
Awesome.
And other habits, you live in a house with people, you see their habits, you start to adopt them, like taking an afternoon time out. My grandma, she took a bath in the afternoon, and then her after bath ritual was to listen to a classical music show. That was one of her favorites. Mm-hmm. And she had particular snacking style and her little afternoon ritual. And I have to say, I live in Florida now and it's hot. And I have a swimming pool. And I notice that I'll do a lot of work in the morning. And then in the late afternoon, I love going outside, being in the pool, listening to a book on tape, an audiobook, and or just meditating, practicing some pranayama, listening to the insects. There's some cicadas right now, and
Oh, it is.
it's just fascinating. And I have a cardinal, a bird that comes and sings, and he has been doing this for years. I mean, this cardinal and I call him handsome, and we'll interact. He gets excited if he hears me outside. If I'm talking, he'll come to a particular pine tree and start singing.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, yeah. Great. Well, this is a great place to stop with a positive thought like that. It's wonderful. So I thank you very much for being with you. It's just been fascinating to visit and talk with you and just try to stay up with all those thoughts you were sharing with us. So I thank you very much for being here.
Oh, Joyce, thank you so much for inviting me, and I look forward to coming back soon.
Well, we will be talking again. So thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Now, for you out there listening, I'd like for you to think about this week. Now, we've given you Ambika
Devi.
Yes, has given you lots of great ideas. And so you have an option here of choosing whichever way you want to pick up and put into your life. I hope I'll share with you mine. I'm going to the meditation because there's so much benefit there. So I'm going to begin there. That's my baby step for the week. I hope you'll pick out one. Take up, do the yoga, get a book and read it. I mean, the poetry sounds fascinating. So there's so much for you to choose from this podcast. And I do hope you will choose one. So make it a great week. You have total control of making it the best week of your life. Thank you for being here.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.